I wasn't fulfilled in my personal life and I wasn't fulfilled in my professional career. And so, taking time to reflect was not something I'd done. I'd always been fast action, non-stop. And when you're given no choice but to literally take the plug out and sit back and think, I was amazed at where my thinking took me. I mean, really amazed. At the time, I thought I was making life change.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
So, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Rexhen, and today's guest is Simon Calderbank, a leadership coach, mentor, and speaker who spent nearly a decade helping women leaders break through personal and professional barriers to reclaim their confidence, purpose, and power. Rooted in deep respect for strong female role models and driven by a passion for gender equity, Simon brings a unique blend of compassion, challenge, and clarity to his coaching, earning him a place on the Northern Women's Power Advocacy list. Through his company, Big Nose, Simon has helped hundreds of women step into their potential, dissolve inner conflict, and develop lasting positive leadership mindsets using cognitive behavioral and positive psychology tools. And it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Welcome. Thank you. That's a beautiful welcome as well. It's so nice when you hear your own words, but spoken through somebody else. It does kind of, makes you reflect. As you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, that's me. I've done that. And so it's lovely. I got lots of nice little triggers as you were reading that through. So that's a lovely way to start the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming. It's a pleasure. Tell me a little bit more about on your beginnings, diving a little bit into what inspired you to become a coach and then start your own coaching business. What was that spark?
Well, I always ask my clients, I always get them to kind of take a step back in time. And the question is, when you were young, when you were 7 or 8 years old, and the teacher, your school teacher, asked those inevitable words, when you grow up, what do you want to be? I can safely say that my answer was not, I want to be a coach. Mine was, I want to be a bus driver. And I've no idea why I want to be a bus driver, apart from the fact that I thought it'd be good because I'd see lots of people and I'd be part of their lives and I'd get them from A to B. So I'd help them. And I suppose maybe actually when I look at that desire to help people to be, I suppose, at the forefront of their day in terms of taking them from their homes to their work or their school, or maybe that actually there was more to that than I realized. So from bus driver, I went through a whole myriad of careers. Someone's called me the master of reinvention because of all the different career paths I've trodden. But every path, be that from being an undertaker to a nightclub promoter to selling telecoms for British Telecom, there's always been a common theme, and that's helping people or serving people to make the best of what they've got. So my coaching career was really born out of a really interesting life moment when I was told I could have cancer. And the irony was that the cancer was in my nose. So when your company's called Big Nose, even though it's not spelt the same, I just couldn't stop laughing. I found that so funny that of all the places to have a cancer scare, it was going to be in my nostrils, my sinuses to be exact. So that irony sort of stayed with me. Unfortunately, the poor consultant who was giving me this rather depressing news from his perspective couldn't work out why I found that so funny. Even my explanation of my company's called Big Nose, it's a play on words, had absolutely no impact on them whatsoever. Literally, it was like a tumbleweed moment. So I just laughed out of the surgery. And thankfully, there wasn't a cancer. It was benign. He said, this could be the biggest tumor that we've ever seen. And thankfully, it wasn't. But it still meant I took time off work to convalesce. And it was that moment that made me realize that I had to make some serious life decisions. And one of them was I wasn't fulfilled in my personal life and I wasn't fulfilled in my professional career. And so, taking time to reflect was not something I'd done. I'd always been fast action, non-stop. And when you're given no choice but to literally take the plug out and sit back and think, I was amazed at where my thinking took me. I mean, really amazed. At the time, I thought I was making life-changing decisions. But having been a business development in the early part of the business, I'd always been in sales and marketing. I think, even when you're an undertaker, you're still selling and people are still buying from you. I'd fallen out of love with what I did. I'd also fallen out of love with my marriage. So yeah, taking that time was really poignant, powerful, bad at the time, but empowering, taking decisions that were going to affect the rest of my life, that were going to impact positively on my children's future, and even, I suppose, have a positive impact on the children's mum. So, we sort of we drew apart amicably and still are cordial, which is good, because obviously the children are still, they're almost grown-ups now, and it was that moment of clarity that made me realize that I still wanted to serve people, but not from a business development perspective, but from a personal development, professional development. And it was that moment of, so really, I've been kind of servicing people in not the wrong way, but not in a way that was going to bring the best out of me and therefore bring the best out of the people I wanted to serve. And that was it. 15 momentous occasion. And it was literally, I think the operation was either the day before my birthday or the day after, but it was around my birthday because someone said, the perfect birthday present, you've not got cancer. And I was all, yeah, that's one way of looking at it. And I suppose I've always looked at life thinking, what's the worst that could happen and how do I take good from bad? So yeah, I learned how to coach. I was trained by good people, had no money, no marriage, was away from my children. I was literally just set to start again, hence the master of reinvention. And I did it because I knew it was the right thing to do and no regrets, none whatsoever. Best thing I ever did.
Interesting. So when you think about it, that moments like these make you think, otherwise you would have just gone on autoplay somehow. Like how would you envision, like if nothing like this, and I'm not saying it was a good thing that happened, but it's like the trigger of it made you like make a difference in your life, or even made you aware of where you were. It's interesting how if that were not to happen, for example, do you think that there would be a point that, and I'm not talking just about you, but I'm just like taking a comment like in general. Do you think that if there's not a point, like a low point, do you think that people could still get to that self-awareness?
Oh, it's a really good question. I can only speak, I suppose, from my own context. And I suppose if I hadn't had made, I suppose it's, well, what if onlys. I think sometimes I think deep within me, there was an unhappiness. So I masked that unhappiness by, I suppose, doubling my efforts to make other people happy. And because I did that, it kind of drew my attention to, or it didn't draw my attention to my own state, because I was so busy focused on supporting other people, and their happiness was almost as if I was drinking from theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Constant. I remember my peculiar story. I remember my dentist saying, he said, you must have the resilience of an ox. And I was all, why is that? He said, most people who are got what you've got in terms of had some interesting ENT challenges, it's probably set off the whole cancer scare. He said, I can't believe you even think about work, let alone work 6-7 days a week. And I said, that's just what I do. Because my drive was to make sure that I never let people down, even though all I was doing was letting myself down.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this really peculiar driver within me to put other people first, which I suppose has always been there, but I did it to my own detriment. Was it self-awareness? I think it was someone literally giving me the shock of my life. When you get a phone call to say you need to come to the hospital now, what for? I can't tell you over the phone. Well, you can't just ring me up. Oh, we can. You need to, well, what now? Now, urgently. So I remember that walk was like, it was like a dead man walking, because you're thinking, it's obviously not good news. I've not won anything. So I think the self-awareness was triggered and kicked into life by taking a phone call that I knew was going to change my life. I just didn't know how or when. And the walk was 25 minutes from the house. And yeah, I went through quite a lot of processing as I was walking there. Interesting, on the walk back, when I'd had the news, it sounds odd, this, but I didn't really care because I thought, well, I'll just deal with it. Because once I knew what was happening, I thought, well, I can control that now. I can control how I respond to this. When you're out of control in terms of you don't know what you're walking into, that felt, I'd say, daunting. It was weirdly exciting, but I certainly felt more in charge on the walk back once I'd got the information, because then I thought, right, okay, I'll just deal with that as and when, So being given the facts allowed me to, I suppose, digest it more. But answer your question,
Yeah.
I think sometimes you need what's the word I'm looking for? You need the wind kicking out of you. You need to be given a massive curveball, take stock of where you are, who you are, how you are, to then make some purposeful decisions. Otherwise, I'd have just carried on. And I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today, not because I wouldn't have been a coach, probably wouldn't have survived because I didn't know how to stop. I just was on constant. All I was thinking about was, how can I earn more money to make sure that I give my kids the choices that perhaps I wasn't offered as a young person growing up because of circumstance. So I had all these drivers that looked after other people, not me. Wow.
It's just hard to figure out when is enough, right?
Yeah, well, you just think, just keep going. So, think about the dentist. He said, do you have the resilience of an ox? And I suppose when you've had setbacks in your life, how you respond to those setbacks determines who you become. And I've always responded to setbacks in the same way, which was understand it, learn from it, deal with it, and move on from it. Always. I've always had, my family were incredible support mechanisms. When you've got an auntie who is the most confident and positive person you could ever imagine to meet, who just tells you every day, the world is a stage. Every day you go out of this door, you're on a stage. So make sure that you give your best. Make sure you perform to the best of your ability, whether you're on the bus, the coach, the train, wherever you are, people are watching you. Give them an experience. At the time, I'm thinking, what are you on about? Now I know what she meant. My mum was resilient, one parent family. Yeah. So she brought me and my sister up. So I got resilience by the bucket load from her on a daily basis. I didn't know what resilience was, but I learned that if my mum could raise 2 kids, have 4 jobs on the go at the same time, and make sure that we were always fed, we always had clothes, and with a roof over our heads. For me, that was normal. Therefore, if she could deal with that while she suffered with illness and other such ailments, I had no excuse. And a big sister who was hated at the time, not hated her, but we fought as siblings do, but she guided me through being a teenager. She paved a path for me that made my adolescence more manageable. So yeah, I've got a lot to be thankful for in that respect. And that's made me deal with things the way I do because of their perspectives, their experiences, and they've shaped my reality.
Do you find that there are, working with your clients right now, do you find that there are maybe potential tools that could shake a person without having to have something like this, like in your example, but just like in your case, can you trigger that to them? Thinking about the audience that you serve.
Yeah, I think everyone has their moment or their moments in time when they feel that they're at a crossroads. I think the tipping point in terms of the actual scenario changes, obviously, because it's specific to each person. But I think the concept of the tipping point exists for all of us. We all have moments where we think, oh my, but sometimes we don't shine the light on it because something else happens. I remember I had the good fortune, you could say, to have 8 to 9 weeks of literally waking up, right? Think. And that reflection became the foundation of my coaching framework. So this idea of, I'd never reflected before. And I think what I learned from that was, it's incredible that everything we do and every moment we've experienced in our lives is stored. It's stored in here. And when you have time to reflect, you understand the questions which will guide you to find the answers that have always been in there, but you've never been looking for them, or you've always felt they were out of reach. So in terms of the clients, I just ensure that I make it really clear that we are going to go back in time, almost like in a time machine approach almost. Create a safe environment, let them know that I've gone back in time on many occasions, and it's helped me to decipher and code where I am now. And I think once you align that with your clients, that they know that you've been, let's say, potentially dark places or uncomfortable places, it gives them the confidence and the trust to be guided by you to go back to their own moments in time, their own tipping points. And it's then when you get people to go there, that's when the real essence of coaching becomes apparent, because everything we've done in our lives ultimately has shaped who we are. All our thinking to date has resulted in most of what's going on in our worlds right now. So my purpose is to help people go back comfortably, sometimes uncomfortably, to find out where they've come from and why they are where they are, what's holding them back. And it's always their behaviors, it's always their habits, and it's finding out what's caused the habit. Sometimes people have got no understanding about why they perform the way they do until you take them back. And then you'll get them to hone in on what that moment is. And then the pennies drop, the light bulbs come on, and they go, oh my God, I never realized it was that. And it's an incredible transformation to see when people have that realization and that understanding that, right, so that's it then. It's almost like you go right to the heart of the wound. And then once you're there, then you can start to piece all the ripple effects of what that wound has caused them and why they are the way they are. So it's almost like going back to go forward, but you go back and then you just literally almost reframe where they were and then help them to understand how to, I suppose, navigate their way to a version of themselves that they are more tuned into and more comfortable with. And that usually aligns to where they want to get to. So I suppose you can think reflect is the first part of my process. Frame, which is reframing where their mindset may be or where it was. And then the reinvention piece is, okay, which person do you want to be then? Because that's it. That's their choice. People think they are stuck. I hear that a lot. Oh, I'm stuck. I can't change. Do you want to change? Yeah, I do. Therefore, you can change. There's no such word as can't. My mum said that to me. Yeah, she was right. She just didn't know why. But you can change. You just have to want to change. So that for me, going backwards helps people to snap, tip, and then move forwards. And it can be uncomfortable for some people to revisit memories that have scarred them in scenarios where they blocked. But the baggage that they carry has usually come from a moment in time. So, yeah, you've kind of got to take people to that point so they get that self-awareness. But some people just aren't equipped to do that on their own, or some people just don't want to do that on their own because of what they might uncover and what they might have to revisit. I've got to be aware of that and tread carefully and enable them to be comfortable to do that. And that's the job. That's the purpose. One woman said to me, all the answers I was looking for, they were always within me. What you did was show me how to get there. I don't know how you've done it, but that's what you did. I can't believe all these years I've wasted, pontificated, and the answers I was looking for were always within me. So thank you very much. She couldn't even write a CV. And this is an intelligent woman of high IQ, just stuck, was trapped. So sometimes a fresh perspective, Rexhen, is not saying all, but a fresh perspective can really just give people a moment of self-awareness to go, all right. And sometimes it can be instant. It's almost like you give them permission to shift their belief systems. It's great. That is the biggest fuel. That's the fuel I survive on. That and love. But that fuel of seeing people get it is monumental for me. So it goes back to that, always wanting to help people. I will draw inspiration from that. And I draw inspiration from that because that's, as a client once said, you found your calling in life. So therefore, for me, people's transformations is my currency. It's a fuel that lights me up and it ignites me. And the more I taste, it's almost like a dopamine overdose in some respects, but it's not an overdose because I manage it. But what it means is then those people will then tell other people. One client calls me, he said, you're like a magician. I was all, really? I've been stuck for years. I spend time with you and the world's mine. He said, what have you got? I was all, no idea. Got a big nose. I'm likable. I'm interested. I ask questions that perhaps you weren't expecting, but I put you at ease. Therefore, you are comfortable to tell me everything. That you tell me things that you don't tell your loved ones. So yeah, trust. Maybe I create a space of trust really quickly because I show my own vulnerabilities.
And how long do you think, or in your case, generally, how long do you think it takes for people to go through this? Is there a certain program of a certain length that works with you or not?
Great question. I think each person has their own blockers or limiting belief systems. So some clients, it can be over 12 months. I'm not saying it's every day, but sometimes their blockers are so deep rooted that it can be, and I've had one client who came back and went, I need to do that again. And the reason they did it again, because they didn't apply it. They got it and they could feel it working, but they didn't practice it. It's like, well, that's kind of, practice makes progression. And so that was an expensive learning for them. Whereas other clients, I've worked with people over 5 hours and they've gone, I feel cured. Well, you weren't broken really before, were you? You just created this veneer around yourself that you were stuck. Remember, we make our own choices. So it depends on the context, depends on the person's, I think, learning style as well. But primarily, it's difficult to answer. You only find out when you have that first session where people are and what's holding them back, and also where they want to go to. Some people have got really big aspirations around, this reinvention of themselves. And, so therefore you think, well, actually, that's probably going to take a wee bit more time than someone who's, but in context, it's just understanding that first phase. Got a client with tomorrow who is 12 months to discover the career path that's going to set her for life, but she doesn't know how to do it, doesn't know how to get there. And she saw me speak 3 years ago at one of her companies, and she just said, something in me stirred when I heard you talk, and I remembered, and now here I am. I now need that. I need to be stirred again. So, because this is where I want to be, and I'm not going to get there on my own back. So sometimes people just need that, I suppose, that support. So for her, it will be off and on throughout 12 months because she's got a definitive end goal. I've worked with a couple of clients on particular who just says, right, as and when I need some of your medicine, she calls it, I'll give you 3 days notice and then I'll just need an hour. So she calls it a fix because that suits her lifestyle. So she gets a fix, then it lasts, and eventually it wears off, and then she'll come back for more. It's like a mental MOT.
Yeah.
Some cars need more work doing than others. But as long as I'm available and I treat each person individually and give them what I believe is the way forward. Yeah. But you never know what's under the bonnet, if you're going to use the car analogy, until you have those first conversations, and usually get people to answer a considerable amount of questions that are going to give them focus and give me lots of clues about where they are, where they've been, what's stopping them achieving what they want. So, workshops. I do 5-day challenges. I do lots of one-to-one. I do group sessions where I'll do business coaching with, board of directors, one-to-ones with CEOs, anywhere where people have got the awareness that they need help and that they'll benefit from help. And that doesn't mean to say that they're struggling. Some clients go, I'm really good, I just want to be better. Whereas some clients go, I'm on the floor, can you pick me up, please, and get me up the first rung of the ladder. So everyone's got the power within them. Some people have forgotten how to access it. My job is to help them access it and turn it back on again. It's like oil in a car.
Yeah.
And I'm not a petrol nerd either, but the car analogy is what people usually can understand. We put more time into our vehicles in terms of investment than we put into ourselves, and people wonder why they're broke, why they get broken, because they don't.
That is true.
Yeah, they go to the gym, fine, they do the physical side, but they don't enable themselves to actually equip the most important machine in the world, which is them. When people are ill, where do they go? Doctors, hospital. But they react to that. They don't proactively maintain and look after themselves until something goes wrong. And then it's all ferocity, and I've got to get this and I can't. Well, maybe if you've done some level of maintenance ongoing, you might actually find that in the long run, that's actually a better strategy. So yeah, Americans are very different to us. Americans have an understanding that if I look after myself, I look after myself, and therefore my life will be more purposeful and will have less dips. Whereas in the UK, there's very much I don't need that. But when I do, my God, I'm going to scramble like mad, and then I'm going to challenge the person who I trust because, well, how much? So yeah, you get it's great when you get clients who just go, look, I need help. You're the person to help me out.
Do you have any, sorry for interrupting, sorry.
It's cool, man. It's cool.
Like looking into the future with your coaching business, do you have any specific goals that you're working towards for the next 1 to 3 years?
I would say that to keep doing what I do, to get more accessibility to more people, to be able to, I suppose, to drink that fuel that gives me life, light and purpose. So I suppose my plan is to be more accessible, to the more people who, like I did, and others have hit blockers, or have come off the rails, or who are. I mean, sometimes it can be, mums returning to work. I do a lot of work with women leaders because of my upbringing, as in surrounded by women. It might be businesses that just don't seem to be able to jump out, to sort of get to that next level. They hit a roadblock, and so for me, it's more awareness of who I am, what I am, how I operate, because that therefore means I'll be able to help more people to help themselves. Sounds really simple, but that's all. Someone said, when will you retire? And I was all, why would I retire? Why would I deny myself what makes me tick, which is serving people? So therefore, for me, I retire when I'm physically either not needed or mentally incapable or dead. So for me, I'll always want to do what I do because I know it brings joy and happiness to people, and it gives me a sense of worth, which is, I think everyone's got a sense of worth. Mine is helping other people to find what they need and what they want.
And what when you think about the years of doing this so far, has there been any, and this is for the research too, is when it comes to investments, has there been any investment that you feel like, oh, that was actually worth it in terms of even return, or could be investment in yourself or investment in the coaching business, whatever it is that you feel like, I'm proud I made that investment? And if not, is there an investment that you prefer to have avoided?
Well, I'll go. My first investment as a coach was with a training company based up in Lancashire in the UK. And this is when I was flat, and that was a really good investment. And the thing was, when I was the guy, Michael, was he wanted to scale his business. So therefore he wanted to attract and nurture lots of different coaches and trainers. At the time, I wasn't either a coach or a trainer. So I was a risk. I was the outlier, or the maverick, as he positioned me. And he said, I can see in you something that maybe you can't. He said, so I'm going to take a punt on you. And I was thinking, okay, what's it going to cost? And of course, he asked the question. He said, what's on your mind? I was all, what's the cost? He went, it's nothing. I said, what's the catch? He went, there isn't one, except you have to invest your time into me and into my coaching program. And I said, and what do you get from that? He went, satisfaction, hopefully, a new member of staff. So he said, 7 days, what have we got to lose? I remember when I went back to my falling marriage, and my wife at the time said, and that's the reason why I cannot see me spending the rest of my life with you, because that is such a risk to trust somebody you've only just met. And I just said, it's the right thing to do. My gut told me everything I needed to know, which was, this is the right decision. I just didn't know that 7 days would turn into 7 weeks, would turn into 7 months of me literally having to learn a whole new language, learn how to deliver workshops, not just over 2 hours, but 3 days. And I absolutely loved it. So I was broke, penniless, went into debt, but it was calculated debt to enable me to have a clear runway, focus, and time to really deep dive into this whole world of cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology. And honestly, it's the best thing I've done. It was game changing. It made me understand everything about me. He did say, you'll uncover truths about yourself that you've always wanted the answers to. Every day was like, woof, being hit by bricks, thinking, God, if I'd have known this now. And he went, yeah, they all say that. It's what you do with it now that's important. So I started from nothing in my coaching career. That was a brilliant investment. And the most recent one has been with a guy called Chris. And Chris has given me a real insight in how to make myself more, I won't say attractive, that's probably the wrong word, but more accessible. So Chris he's almost like he's a machine that understands how to create client acquisition. He's also got a very different perspective for me. I've not often worked with American coaches, but I found it fascinating, and that's a community. And I've been with that community now for 9 months. And again, I just knew this is the right thing to do. And my partner went, you sure? Is there a risk? Yeah, of course there's a risk, but it's calculated. So I would bookend the start of my coaching career with Michael, and now currently with Chris. And Chris isn't teaching me my job. he's teaching me how to become more accessible to my audience. So he's given me all the strategies and advice and perspective and stories about if I want to, meet more people and make more connections and transform more lives, I couldn't have chosen a better partner than him. There's a cost to him, but it was a cost that I was comfortable to invest in because I could really see the fit. And yeah, he challenges me, but that's what I asked for. And he holds me accountable. And that's what I asked for. And I love it. And I'm there every call without fail. It's part of my weekly ritual with him and the other cohort. So they're two really good investments in terms of business. The other one is my changing accountant. So operationally, changing accountant, investing in a much smaller family-based firm that knew me, that knew what made me tick, that was interested in me and was interesting. And the impact they've had, they got me through lockdown. My business nosedived like most coaches in lockdown. They supported me, guided me, and yeah, I wouldn't be here now without them. They're like the, how can I put it? They're on my shoulder constantly. And any decision I now make, I always say, what would Helen do? Or what would Helen think? So it's almost as if she's in my head, even though I only see her once a quarter. She's become a permanent sort of internal fixture. So they're the three that I would pick out in terms of that have made the most productive impact on me and my persona and my business. And I recommend them constantly because of how they've helped me to decipher me and my business and the landscape, and make sure I'm always, I suppose, not so much accountable and committed to what I do. Yeah, there's been some dodgy ones. There's been some weird other market investments that you're thinking, why did I fall? Not fall, that's the wrong word, because obviously they're sold in good faith, but sometimes you buy what you think is going to help, but you never know it's going to help until you actually buy it. And then sometimes you realize that actually that wasn't. But I think, well, okay, I'll park it. It was a couple of grand, or I'll utilize it. It'll come good somewhere. And usually sometimes you buy things at the wrong time, but you don't realize that until you buy them. You think it'll plug a gap, but sometimes it doesn't. And I suppose the reason for buying is because I think it's going to help me scale. It's going to help me help other people. So the intention behind the purchase is always honorable, but sometimes the timing might not quite be right. But you just hold it. It sits in a holding station in a drive somewhere. You think, all right, I've got that. Right, now is the time to use. So it's almost like a forward investment. So yeah, I've got one of those actually just about to land at 2 years in. I've hardly used it, whereas now feels a really good time. So, okay, that's why I bought you.
What is right now for you a challenge that you're trying to solve for next in the coaching business?
How to help women deal with male toxic behaviors in the workplace. Women are faced with so many challenges, not just gender inequality, systemic biases, gender stereotyping, men having more perceived confidence to apply for roles, positions that actually they haven't got the ability to do, but they've got the confidence to apply for them. And usually they're applying through men. So the biggest challenge for me at the moment is, say, systemic biases in the workplace. And I hear it a lot from female leaders that sometimes they feel they are a tick box exercise and that their voice isn't heard properly. And it's about trying to readdress that imbalance. So that's a quest of mine at the moment. It's a challenge for me to understand my fellow men, to try and decipher why is it that they behave sometimes so differently in the workplace than they do when they're outside of work. What is it about work that turns them into the personas that they portray? So yeah, particularly when towards their female counterparts, it's not hidden that, there's more men in leadership positions. And I know companies have a real drive to readdress that, but intention is nothing without action. So I'm on a big quest, big mission at the moment to get men to wake their buck up and realize that they are the problem, but they're also part of the solution. Every man I know was born by a woman.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe it's just time to reframe your approach and realize that together you can be such a more prolific partnership. It's not a competition, life. It's a collaboration.
Absolutely.
Certain styles, the male ego, it's not the ego, it's the male wiring. We were wired to provide and feed and fight. And I think a lot of men, that's embedded in us from an early age, but For me, when you're raised by women, my embedding was not that at all. My embedding was to empathize, was to be compassionate, was to support and nurture. So you could say that I've got a bias kicking in, but when I see the impact that male behaviors have on women, I'm really pleased that I was raised by women. If I had a choice to go back, no chance.
Is there any advice you'd like to give to other coaches who are looking to scale their impact, just like you are?
Look in the mirror more often, look at who you are. And once you've done that and you're happy with what you see, I would then say start looking through the window at others and understand what it is you're wanting to achieve with them. I think a lot of coaches just think it's a case of getting a qualification, reading a few theory books. I've never seen an explosion as I've seen since the lockdown, since COVID hit, of life coaches who've all got their badges and they've got the letters after the name. And I'm thinking, that's brilliant. That's great. You've demonstrated your ability to, for resilience in terms of your learning. But does that make you a worthwhile opportunity for people? For me personally, I think look in the mirror and find out where you've come from and what stories can you share with people that will demonstrate that you actually do or you have practiced what you preach. Preachers, for me, there's no place in this world in terms of a coaching. You have to have lived and suffered and experienced. Otherwise, what foundation do you have? And it sounds like I'm knocking those coaches who've taken that decision, but that decision maybe that was their self-awareness moment. I don't know. Or maybe it was a financial moment, but there's a lot of charlatans in any industry, but the industry I'm in, there's a lot of people who promise and can't deliver, not because they don't want to, because they haven't got the gravitas or the authenticity or what I call the real compassion, empathy and purpose to listen with intent. So my advice would be look in the mirror and make sure that you are really, really certain that the career path you've chosen is for the right reasons, which is to make other people's lives better.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Go ahead.
That's it. I think a coach for me is someone who puts others first. There's a great military mantra from Sandhurst, a military station in the UK, serve to lead. Put other people first. Real leadership for me is putting other people. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? How can I help you? And I see a lot of coaches think, how much can I make from you?
Yeah, totally agree with that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
The rewards will come back to you. And that's probably my upbringing of how I was nurtured and how I was conditioned. I'm really pleased that's how I was conditioned. I'm happy with it. I like who I am.
Thank you so much, Simon. And thank you for coming to our podcast. For anyone who wants to connect with you or reach out to you, they can go into LinkedIn, Simon Calderbank, and they'll be able to find you there. Is there any other place?
That's my favorite playground. It's where I can be me. If people do look on my LinkedIn profile, they'll probably pick up that I've got a real passion for fitness racing. So I dipped my toes into fitness racing about 6-7 months ago. And yeah, I've put myself out of my comfort zone like you wouldn't believe. And I've loved it. And I've actually shared those experiences and weaved in fitness racing, I suppose, into basically, I want people to see the real me and not just the work facade. So yeah, you'll see, you might even see me doing a lunge on LinkedIn. I never thought I'd say that, but yeah, I am really authentic in terms of how I present myself. But LinkedIn is where I'm very visible, very accessible. And if people are interested to just have a chat, any coaches out there listening who are thinking, there's resonance with what Simon said, always open to provide any guidance or support or just a fresh perspective to help others to, I suppose, look in the mirror with maybe a bit with a different clarity. It was done for me, so I'm more than happy to pay it forward for those other coaches out there who might be either on the crossroads or just at the start point. But to serve is to lead. So I have to live and breathe that mantra, Rexhen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simon.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.